Hi, everyone. Welcome to Spill the Tea Radio, where we interview awesome singer-songwriters and those who influence their lives. Spill the Tea Radio explores the journey, creativity, and inspiration behind the songs. My next guest has a creativity that has been bottled up inside an executive body for decades. She tried music lessons, but they didn't quite work for her. She obtained her first piano by displaying her unconditional love for music, and her stories of her journey are epic. She has been writing and composing music for years, including the song we are featuring today, which is a tribute to the late Hurricane Hazel McCallion, the legendary former mayor of Mississauga. So, let's spill the tea with Ellen McGregor. Hi, Ellen.
Hi, David.
Oh, well, listen, I love to have you on the show. I love to hear your stories. So you and I have been exchanging stories for years now, and
Yes.
you're always so passionate when you tell your stories as well. And that's what makes them so entertaining. And we're going to hear some of them today. First of all, when did you start playing music? When did you start? Was the piano was the first musical instrument you started with, and when was that?
Yeah, great question. So I started hearing music when I was really small, like 5, 6 years old. I was making little songs up, and I thought everybody did that. But my first opportunity to play piano, I was babysitting at a neighbor's place, and they had a piano. And when the kids went to bed, I just sat down and started playing, and music just came to me. It was really quite bizarre. So 13 was when I really got an opportunity to express what I was hearing.
So who influenced you when you were growing up with music? Did you come from a musical family, or was it an artist that you listened to?
My dad was musical. He could pick up almost any instrument and just start playing. So very much played by ear. His sisters also played. Most of them had formal piano lessons, but certainly music abilities run in the on the McGregor side of the family.
Ellen, you have some great stories about pianos, how you've obtained them, how you've
Yeah,
lost them,
yeah.
how you've recovered them. Uh, so let's get into one of those stories. Your very first piano that
Yeah.
you purchased has a very interesting story behind it. Tell us that story, and start it off with, what age were you when you bought that first piano?
So I was 13, and it was the piano that was owned by the people I babysat for. And I had written this piece, and I really wanted my dad to hear it. And so I asked him, do you think that if, we asked the family that we could come over and use the piano and I could play it for you? Yes, yes, yes. And so we did that. And I remember so vividly, David, the three of them, so Mr. and Mrs. Beggs and my father, sitting there on the piano, or on the couch rather, listening to me play the piano. And when I was done, I looked up, and my dad, they were all teary. And I thought I really screwed up. I'm thinking, oh, I was horrible. But of course, they were emotional about it. And so my dad turned to them and said, is your piano for sale? And they said, absolutely. And so for $100, he bought the first piano I owned, and they rolled it up the street. It wasn't far away, but nonetheless, they rolled it. They got these big dollies, probably from the company that my dad owned, and rolled it up the street. And that's how I got Henrietta, my very first piano.
You have one piano story where you had a certain amount of money to buy a
Yeah.
piano. You went to buy it, and somebody outbid you on it, but the
Yes.
owner gave it to you anyways. Tell us that story.
Yes. That's such a sweet story. So my in-laws at the time, they asked my husband at the time and I to look after the farm. And while they were away, a cow went into labor and had this beautiful calf. We were able to deliver it safely. And my mother-in-law said, Ellen, I know you want a piano. This is after I'd moved out of the house and I didn't have Henrietta with me. And she said, I'm going to, when this cow goes to slaughter, I'm going to give you a check. And you're going to use that check to buy a piano. Well, it went to slaughter. I got $500. And that was a lot of money for me at the time, but doesn't go far for a piano with piano. Anyway, long story short, there was a gentleman who'd lost his wife, selling all his contents of his house, and included in the contents was a piano right up the street from where I was living. And up I went, and he said, "Can you play for me? I want to see you play. Do you play like my wife?" And I played, and we both had tears, and he said, "You have to have this piano." He said, "How?" I said, "How much?" He said, "How much do you have?" I said, "I have $500. Oh, what a negotiator I am. And he said, "It's yours for $500." And when I got home, he called me and he said, "Right after you left, a couple came and they offered me $850. And I said, "Okay, I understand. You're going to sell it to them." And he said, "Absolutely not. I know what it's like to be young starting out. If you wanted to make $350, I wanted to give you the opportunity." I said, "No, I want the piano." And he said, "I knew you would say that. It's yours."
People are going to think, well, you have this massive piano, this wonderful piano that you finally have in your possession.
Yeah.
They're going to be shocked to find out that about you and music lessons. Tell us the story about when you started to take music lessons and why you walked out and never went back.
Yeah, that was silly that I never went back, but I'll tell you why I walked out. At 13, I did start. So again, it was on Henrietta. And I was very active as a child. I mean, I skated and I did gymnastics, and I was very involved in young people's and CGIT and at the church. So there were just so many activities that I was involved in, and music was very important to me, but these other things were very important to me. And when I would play, I'd play a piece of Mozart or Tchaikovsky, and she would say, "Well, that's not the way it was written." And I'd say in arrogance, as teenagers can be, "Well, that's the way I hear it. And maybe if Tchaikovsky were alive today, he would agree," which is pretty rude and pompous and arrogant. Nonetheless, I said it. I'm sure it was one of her most difficult students. And one day I played, and I guess I hit all the notes. And she stopped me and she said, "Ellen, if you got serious about piano, you could have a career in it. You could go places." And she said, "But I need you to commit. I need you to get out of skating and stop gymnastics and don't date boys and all of this." And she said, "Do that. And then let's just work together." And I just said, "No, that's not what I want. That's not who I am." And I said, that's not for me. And so, David, looking back, I had the beauty of today is that kids have different styles that they can learn music through. That wasn't the case. You had Royal Conservatory or you had Royal Conservatory. You didn't have a choice back then. And Royal Conservatory and I, that probably wasn't the path I should have been on. I should have been working with somebody who could bring out the creativity. Instead, I was smacked on the wrists over and over again for being creative. Yeah. So I walked. I should have gone back, but I walked.
What you do is considered playing by ear.
Correct.
You hear the music and you're able to transpose that into the keys in front of you on the piano.
Yeah.
What's that process like in your head? Like, how does that work?
It's very busy. It often happens, most often, during my sleep. And the uncommon thing there, it's not unheard of, but uncommon, is that I write the lyrics at the same time I'm writing the music. And then I just get up and I come down and 90% of it is written. And it just is expressed on the piano. Don't ask me how it works with the brain. I know that it's exhausting when it happens. I'm absolutely exhausted the next day. But that's how it manifests. And usually someone has said something or they've asked me. I mean, I've been asked to write for, weddings or corporate events or birthdays or plays, because I wrote for musical scores for musical amateur theater for a few years. But I've been asked. Even then, I will often write at night and sometimes during the day. But there's a deliberate purpose. But when someone just says something, like you could just spark within me a phrase, and I will lose a night's sleep and I will write a piece of music. So that's how it happens. One of those two ways.
Well, let's get into one of the songs that Ellen wrote. The song is from 2021 and was written for the late Hazel McCallion, the legendary former mayor of Mississauga. The music and lyrics were written by Ellen and performed by the Sheridan College Music Theater students. The song was edited during COVID by Mississauga producer Ron Duquette of Legends Row fame. So let's take a listen to Break the Ceiling by Ellen McGregor.
When you see wrong, you can just go along. You have a choice to use your voice, use your voice, use your voice. Break a ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling, break a ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling.
People will say, I've never thought about it that way. You
Planted a seed. I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna follow. I'm gonna follow your lead. Break the ceiling.
oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling, break a ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling.
Break the ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling. Break a ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling. When you see wrong, you can just go along.
Protect the Lord.
Or create. We're gonna create. Let's create a storm. Break a ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling. Break a ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling. Break a ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling. Break a ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling. Break a ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. Break a ceiling. Break a
That was Break the Ceiling by Ellen McGregor. Ellen, anybody that's from Mississauga, actually anybody that's from Canada and paid attention to politics in any way, shape, or form, knows the name Hurricane Hazel McCallion as the former mayor of Mississauga. The late Hazel McCallion passed away a year ago. What was the inspiration for that song? We know she had an important birthday coming up. Did you just think about it in your head? Did somebody suggest it to you? How did it all come about?
Yeah, so the phrase break a ceiling was one that, she wore as a label. Everybody who knew her well would say, Hazel is just famous for breaking ceilings. And I thought that was a unique phrase. Certainly it was one I'd heard before, but I'd never heard it in music. And maybe I just haven't heard the music that includes those words, but I hadn't heard it in music. And so that I found very stimulating. But Hazel herself, I'm like so many, and women, especially women, but not always. She was incredibly supportive of women in business. She knew my dad. She knew when I came into the company as a woman in a male-dominated business. She reached out to me and she said, if there's anything I can do. And she was always supportive of me. I'm so forever thankful. She was much like my father. who she believed that what defines us isn't what we stand for, but it's what we do when we see something we don't stand for. And that was a very powerful message that I felt from her, I observed of her. And so when I wrote this song, Break a Ceiling, I wanted to ensure that the messaging, that it's what you do when you see something you don't stand for, is included in the lyrics. That was really the motivation. And so I wrote the song, and then, I mentioned when they were looking for video content that I had written a piece for Hazel. And it just was snapped up. Ron Duquette said, "Oh, we need this in the video." And lucky me, lucky her, I guess, hopefully.
Ellen, this isn't the first piece you've written. You've written many pieces. You wrote a song for your daughter's wedding. You wrote this song. You dance
Yeah.
as well, and you've written your own themes for dancing as well. Do you think you'll ever get that urge to get up on stage and perform professionally?
So thank you. I have done that. I mentioned earlier, I wrote musical score for amateur theater, and I performed. And I can tell you, David, no is the answer. I'm not going to do that. I love to hear other people interpret my music. I love to hear them take license with the music. It is a rush. I had a piece produced years ago. Donald Kwan, he actually arranged it. And when I walked into the music studio and heard my music being played with an orchestra, I darn near fell over. It's a rush I can't put words to. I should. Maybe I'll write a musical piece about what it feels like to have your music played. But I can tell you that I don't like to perform. I like to write.
We have been in conversation with Ellen McGregor. Ellen, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you, David. Thank you so much.